Hey there, and welcome back to this random SL1 playthrough of Dark Souls 3. Last time we suffered through the Archdragon Peak and we got murdered a whole bunch of times by the Nameless King, and today we're just going to move on right ahead and travel back to Lothric Castle. So here we are, and we actually did a small part of this stage in an earlier video, so we're just going to be starting from that point rather than starting all the way back at the beginning. So after getting shot by and killing this guy, I'm going to go in my equipment and I'm going to swap out Pontiff's right eye ring for the Chloranthy ring for the extra stamina regen. And now I'm going to heal and eventually move on forward. I'm over here and I'm going to get slapped in the face by this guy, and he's going to slap me in the face a couple more times because apparently I was having a lot of trouble that day. Heading down here, you can pick up this Titanite chunk around here, and there's also this place over here where there was a lot of hollows attacking me, so I tried to parry this guy, and I also tried to parry him a second time, but I failed miserably, so instead I got a janky backstab. So come over here and pick up these souls, and after killing this guy, you can pick up these Titanite chunks over here, and now you can head on over to the stage's second bonfire, but before you light it, come over here and pick up this ember. Or you can do it after if you want to, but I decided to do it first, so that's just how it is. So sit down at the bonfire to replenish your Estus and keep going by going up these stairs and eventually reaching this bridge where you can drop down, and over here is the Titanite chunk you can pick up. So there you go. And afterward there's this guy over here who I fought, and I also killed this one before he could explode, so come over here and pick up this other Titanite chunk. And another Titanite chunk over here. A little further ahead is this place with this guy who stabbed me in the stomach, and there was also this guy who I had a massively stupid fight with. He gave me his dagger, so that's whatever, and I also fought more of these guys, but I started having a whole lot of trouble because, well, as I said before, I was sucking real bad that day, so that's just how it went. Also, he gave me his pants, and I stopped by the bonfire once again. So back at the bridge, I actually dropped on the other end of the bridge this time, where you can pick up this Undead Bone Shard, and I eventually managed to start moving on with the stage actually. So I came across this place where there's a whole ton of hollows, and I tried to heal here, but instead I just got pancaked by this guy. So I came back and I actually managed to run past them, and I headed inside this room in order to get away from the guy shooting arrows at me, and I attempted to start killing these guys, and this one just came over here and we had a funny trade. So I picked up this raw gem and then I went back over here to these guys. So I went ahead and backstabbed the first guy, and at this point my brain turned back on and realized that there was actually two of them and there was no way I was going to win, so instead of trying to fight them I just decided to take a run for it and leave them alone. So I then got over here where there's these two dragons up there, and they started breathing fire on me and I failed to dodge, so I ended up getting burned to a crisp. So yeah, I guess it's back to the bonfire for me. So then I picked up a bow and I started shooting arrows at them because I thought there was a way to cheese them, you know, without having to shoot thousands of arrows at them until they died, but if there was a way to make it work, I didn't manage to do it, so I just had to resign myself to taking the right path. All I got were these dragons who started shooting fire at me constantly, so if I was smart I would have stopped at the bonfire to get them to calm down, but I am not smart, so instead I tried to brute force my way through it, and all I got was death. So coming back next time I actually managed to avoid getting burned this time, so you know, that generally helps. So I eventually got into this room where I started climbing this ladder while some guys were making explosions behind me and whatnot. So eventually I climbed up the ladder and this guy just fell down, so I had to wait for him to come back. I picked up this soul in the meantime, and then victim number 1 came around and victim number 2 did as well. Now it's time for victim number 3, and after having a quick look down the ladder I realized that victim number 4 was coming for me, so there you go. Afterwards I killed the pus of man that was corrupting the dragon, and this caused the both of them to just vanish into thin air, and I got 2 Titanite chunks and 2 embers for that, so That's really useful, and the pus of man dropped me another Titanite chunk, so that was pretty cool. There was also another one over here. So I went back over here to where the dragons were breathing fire before, and there was 2 embers you could pick up around here, and back in this room is some black fire bombs, which is nice, because I just ran out of those things not too long ago. Here was 1 pale pine resin, which is really nice, because that's the element I'm going to use against the boss, because that's what he's weakest to, I believe. And you can also pull this lever over here, which opens the gate to make a shortcut to where the dragons were breathing fire, so now we can just run straight through instead of having to go around. And I also got slapped around by a Lothric Knight, so that was kind of fun. Picked up this ember over here as well, and now I reached the area right before the boss. Before I head on to the boss, however, I'm going to mess around in order to pick up a whole bunch of stuff, including these rusted coins and this Titanite scale in this chest over here. But if you move on a little, there's this red tearstone ring over here, which could be useful for some Tears of Denial shenanigans later on. And there's also this elevator, which is actually a shortcut back to the beginning, except it's really freaking slow. So here is where the elevator takes you. It's basically the first room of the stage with the knight and the dude that heals him, and it's a cool little shortcut, and it would be a lot better if it wasn't so slow, so whatever. Before I move on, I'm going to climb this ladder to go pick up a whole bunch of more stuff. So there's a Titanite chunk here, and past these guys who almost killed me, there's also this hole, and after messing around and getting shot in the back, I'm going to eventually just take the plunge and drop down. And over here is a very important item, as you will soon see. So after breaking the table, it's the Knight's Ring, which is going to be needed in order to use the Dragon Slayer's axe later. So I decided I would just run past the Lothric Knight guiding the shortcut, because I was starting to run low on Estus and I didn't want to risk it, but he ended up deciding to come over to try and murder me while I was opening the door, but he ended up giving me a free opportunity for a backstab, so I decided I might as well go ahead and kill him while I was here. So a few hits later and he goes down, so he gives me 3,000 souls, no, 5,000 souls, as well as a large Titanite shard, and I'm going to warp back to the previous bonfire. After messing around some more and picking up this divine tome over here, as well as killing this bus of man and taking the soul that he's guarding, he also, like all the others, gave me an ember and some Titanite chunks. I also killed the mimic just because I could, and after all of that I went back to the shrine in order to buy a whole ton of black fire bombs, because, well, I basically had no more of those things. And I also upgraded the Dragon Slayer's axe all the way to +10, so there we go. So before I move on, I'm going to burn the undead bone shard I picked up in the bonfire in order to improve my Estus, and now I'm going to head back to the first bonfire so I can take the shortcut and head over to the boss fight. Yes, this shortcut is really slow and I need to point it out every time, so time for the boss now. So I'm going to start off with some grass in order to improve my stamina regen. I'm also going to use some pale pine resin for extra magic damage, and yeah, I actually managed to beat this guy on my first try. Spoiler alert, I guess, but it really wasn't all that hard. He didn't manage to land a hit on me there, but it wasn't so bad, so I just went ahead and gave him a couple of smacks, and eventually I'm going to go ahead and heal. So after missing a dash attack horribly, I'm going to go ahead and give him a few more smacks, which will get him to phase 2, and this is where the real fight begins, because phase 1 is pretty freaking easy. But he does have a lot of big moves during phase 2, like that attack right there, and this is also the point at which my health bar is too big to fully heal with just one Estus, so I have to use 2 of them in order to get back to full health. So during phase 2 there's these things in the background which are going to start throwing projectiles all over the place. They're not that big a deal as long as you just stay careful to not stay in the same spot for too long. So it was a giant laser, but it wasn't even close. I don't know what they were thinking, but otherwise you just dodge his very predictable attacks and you just keep on whacking him. Occasionally he does a sort of janky attack, and there's also this giant fountain in the middle you can use to shield yourself from some of the projectiles the off-arena enemies shoot at you, and I almost died there, but it turns out I was fine, and after barely dodging this attack I managed to heal myself all back up to full. So he's almost dead at this point, but there's one more twist, which was this giant meatball that came from these enemies off the arena that shot it at me, and it could have spelled my doom if I didn't manage to dodge all the subsequent attack, but it wasn't too bad. So after dodging this uppercut slam attack thing, I'm going to give him the final smack, and that's it, he's dead. So Yeah, I managed to do it on my first try and it wasn't all that hard. So here's the things that are attacking you from off screen and they die after the end of the fight for some reason. So after lighting the bonfire, I'm going to come over here and there's these stairs that go down and at the bottom is the titanite chunk, I believe. Yeah, so you know, if you're missing some, there's one over here and there's plenty more in the upcoming stage. Also went ahead and had a look over here, but there wasn't anything at all. It's just my curiosity got the best of me, what can I say? So with that, I'm going to unequip the pine resin from my hotbar because I won't be needing it for any time soon. So I'm going to head over here to the beginning of the next stage, and there's another bonfire, which is like 10 seconds away from the Dragon Slayer's armor bonfire, and that's going to be the end of the video, I think. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, that's cool. If not, well, sorry, I tried my best. Also, I didn't stay down for very long this time, huh?